Welcome back to Daybreak. It's 6:43, and today we are looking back at when there was a new bishop for Buffalo, a major groundbreaking in town, and the Hotel Villanova is still standing. 2 on your sides, Dave McKinley has our weekly walk back in time when those stories and more were all news to you.
10 years ago this week, the Tim Hortons statue was unveiled, the rinks were opened, and so was the bar at Harbor Center. The hotel above it was still a work in progress. The Tonawanda News published its final issue. Ted Nolan was coaching the Sabres. Buffalo School Superintendent Tanja Williams was still the principal at School 37, and the county executive made $103,000 a year. A decade later, he's due to pull down $175,000 for the same job. That's a 70% salary increase from what he made this week in 2014. 20 years ago this week, as Halloween approached, Greg Brady showed up at the door on Daybreak. He wasn't in costume, but we're going to show you 3 usually very recognizable people who were for this week's News to You pop quiz. See if you can name this person dressed up as Paris Hilton, this one portraying Oprah Winfrey, and this one dressed for Halloween as Donald Trump. Remember, this was back when Edward Kimmick was installed as the 13th bishop of the Buffalo Catholic Diocese, and when for the first time since 1918 the Boston Red Sox won the World Series, and when after 86 years the curse of the Bambino was finally lifted this week in 2004. 30 years ago this week, at a site in the shadow of Memorial Auditorium, ground was broken for the construction of the Crossroads Arena, which you now know better as KeyBank Center. That same week, they cut the ribbon on the brand new air traffic control tower at the Buffalo Airport. And in South Carolina, the nation watched as a mother begged for the return of her children from whom she told police was a black man who took her car with them in it. Concern turned to shock, though, when about a week later she confessed to sending her car into a lake with her 2 little boys in it. Convicted of murder, Susan Smith will be eligible for parole next week, 30 years after drowning her sons this week in 1994. 40 years ago this week, when Walter Mondale made a last-minute campaign swing through Buffalo, they literally held the Last Supper at the City Mission, at the old one, before they opened their new place on Tupper Street. There were still a lot of old buildings left at the Bethlehem Steel site, and still a lot of room for new buildings at UB North. And the Hotel Villanova still stood on Franklin near Chippewa, where it had been for more than 80 years, where it had quite an interesting past, as described by Channel 2's Rich Kellman.
The Villanova Hotel was very well known by a whole generation of gentlemen who patronized the ladies who plied their trade here, mainly by night.
An interesting way to put it that you might not hear on the news these days, to describe the building where a planned renovation never materialized before it was torn down 9 years after this week in 1984, when it was all news to you.
And here is the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. Yeah, those are the hosts of the Today Show 20 years ago, dressed for Halloween as some of the hottest TV celebrities of 2004. So Matt Lauer was there dressed up as Paris Hilton, Al Roker was Oprah Winfrey, and Katie Couric dressed up as Donald Trump back when he starred in The Apprentice. 6:46 now.